Well, welcome, guys. Welcome to this session on how to communicate better with UK recruiters. Um, and here we have Neidra. So we'll be going ahead, deep dive into questions that we want to ask her, and also we will be understanding from her how going into details of what to say, how to speak, because most of the people that we're seeing, or most of the people that are on our platform and people that engage with the job seekers community are mainly from the Asian minority groups or African countries, or and so when you're coming out of your local countries and moving to a new location, things are much different than what you are used to. So I think this sort of a communication or communication skills guidance is going to be useful for you. So stay on for all the questions. I'll allow Neidra to introduce herself, and then we'll take it from there.
Hi, my name is Neidra, and I hope I can be of some assistance to all you looking for work in the UK. Let me just tell you a little bit about my background and the experiences that have helped shape where I am today. So, my family has been helping young people find careers that they love um, for really as long as I can remember. Um, I grew up listening to this advice over the dinner table, and now um, I would say the same thing. People keep making the same mistakes year after year on their CVs and looking for jobs. So I've spent almost 20 years now helping people, coaching, mentoring, supporting them, and really walking alongside them in on difficult journeys. I studied psychology for my bachelor's degree, um, and I've really been studying communication and neuroscience for many years. I'm currently applying to do my master's in health psychology. Um, my focus is on understanding how people connect, how they listen and respond, and not just what they say. Um, as Jabez knows, I've traveled lots. I've kind of grew up all around Southern Africa. Um, and so I have a lot of experience across cultures and languages, um, helping people to overcome barriers to effective communication. I also ran my own businesses, so I've been on both sides of the table, both as a job seeker and a recruiter, sifting through CVs, doing interviews and trying to find the best fit for my companies. Um, I've made lots of mistakes along the way, but I think that I've learned from them, and it's brought me to where I am today, which is a very much a person-centered approach to coaching and to helping people.
That's great. No, very nice to hear. No, that intro. No, just walking you through your journey, but no, I want to understand more about how your specific experiences have kind of shaped your approach to coaching and recruitment. How have you looked at it differently, being on both sides of the table? You know what it takes to be a job seeker, and you also know what it takes to recruit someone who you want to bring onto a team. So how has your life experiences kind of merged into that approach of coaching and recruitment?
So I believe that every case is a different case. Every person is different. And so I really focus on individuals, and how I can help them to connect in the ways that they want to. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So no, shed some light, maybe even shed some light on on some of the bad experiences that you've had in recruitment, or even some good, good examples and bad examples, so we can kind of have an understanding of what has happened.
Yeah. So, um, so lots of good experiences and lots of bad experiences. I was working in administration and business for many years, maybe 14 years, and it was, waking up in the morning. I hated going to work, um, and probably spend more time at work than we do anywhere else. So I think it's really important for people to not just look for a job, but to look for a vocation. Um, and having been through that myself, and having found passion in coaching and psychology, I know that if I'm capable of it, anybody's capable of it. So just helping people to reach that stage themselves.
Cool. So and in terms of like, no, that kind of just has a really nice segue into the next question of how, like, what are employers really looking for, like, just beyond skills or just hard skills, like what are they actually looking for, and can you go into some of the qualities like the crucial steps or skill sets that are required in landing a job?
Yeah. So first of all, from the employer's perspective, they're they're looking for they're asking themselves, why should I hire you for this role? And no matter what the question is that they ask, what you're answering is, how do I add value to this company or to this team? Um, I would look for somebody with a positive attitude, somebody who is enthusiastic, passionate, um, adaptable, and especially in this context where you're coming from, a different background, you're coming from a different culture, you need to be able to show that you're adaptable, show off your communication skills, problem solving, and initiative. I think being someone who's willing to contribute is essential. Um, and really, if a company's not looking for that, then you don't want to work for them. And
Hmm.
a tip I would have is, don't try to be funny or use big words like be over clever or over innovative. Just be yourself. And also remember that every interaction counts. So, even those pre-calls and emails, the interview really starts way before you step into that room. It starts with the receptionist, and a lot of times employers will ask the receptionist how their interaction with you was, and what they thought. Um, and when you do step into that room, the interviewer has decided really if they want you, in that role within the first 60 seconds. The rest is just confirming their feeling.
Cool. That you mentioned a very, very good point over there of um of 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 kind of making sure that everything that you do until the interview also counts. It's not just the interview, because a lot of times I think we don't really look at understanding how we're talking to peers or how we're talking to people outside the interview room, or no, just no, we come late, for example, or even just we're thinking about so many different things that we miss out on the key part of being professional in every step of the way. I think, no, that's a very crucial point.
Sure.
So what's the common mistakes that you've seen in like CVs, or and how can, like, how can job seekers ensure their CV stands out from others in the UK market? Because specifically right now, we are dealing with the UK market, but what I might want to know is like, in terms of CVs, what common mistakes have you seen personally?
So you're probably familiar with a lot of these, but I would say overloading your CV with irrelevant information,
Mm-hmm.
a lack of tailoring to the specific position is a big one. Errors in spelling and grammar, and I don't think employers have any time for that. They're not going to want you to work for them if you're making, silly mistakes. I would, I wouldn't put a photo on your CV, not in the UK anyway.
Right.
I mean, even if you're beautiful, there's going to be some subconscious discrimination,
Mm.
and really not keeping it clear, factual, and focused is a problem. And then nowadays, with ChatGPT and AI tools, people rely on that to do the job for them.
Right.
But the thing is with those things, if if you put fluff in, you're going to get fluff out. So I'm
Right.
not saying don't use it at all. I'm just saying use it to refine your writing, not to create it all.
Right.
There's actually there's this video I saw the other day, as a YouTube video with Ed Sheeran,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone was saying to him, um, "Oh, you're so talented! You were born with such an amazing talent." And he plays this clip from when he started off as a young teenager, and he
Yeah.
was awful, like really bad. Um, and yeah, it just goes to show. I've seen some like that with Shakira as well, but like they weren't born stars. They've worked hard to get where they are. Um, and yeah, I mean, everyone has experience. The key is how you present it. And this is your moment to showcase it. I think if you're listening to this webinar, you already care, and now you just need to back it up with action. Um, and like I said before, about being adaptable, um, I think the key is you don't have to know everything, even for the role that you're going into. But if an employer can see that you are teachable and willing to learn,
Mm.
they would prefer take someone like that on than someone who thinks they know everything and are kind of set
Right.
in their ways.
So I think I catch on to that point because if you're teachable and you're willing to learn, because a lot of times I tell everyone that I work with, um, your CV is just 70% of the job, right? Of getting there, right?
Mm.
Getting to the first interview or getting to that first call, and the remaining 30% really dives into how trainable you are, what transferable skills you have, what skill sets you carry to learn quickly, adapt quickly, learn in a new environment, your team working skills. So that has to translate on your CV, rather than just looking like a nerd when you put in like a prompt on ChatGPT that I want a CV for the tech industry or as a data analyst, and these are my numbers, these are my details, give me a CV. It's going to give you a CV, but it's going to be very focused on just that particular part. It might be too generic or it might be too technical where you're not really kind of bringing in your transferable skills, your skill sets that actually outshine who you are as a person than the other person who's applying to. Right now, like last week, I think I reviewed around 10 to 15 data analyst CVs, and because I have this huge monitor in front of me, I put everything aligned just next to each other. Every CV had the same things, literally the
No.
same things.
Oh my God.
And if it said optimize the workflow in 20%, the same thing was said in another CV. So when I speak to these people, because they're copy pasting, what's actually happening is the numbers aren't changing. At least go to the point of taking those numbers and making sure those numbers fit your relevant work experiences, if that's what you're doing, because then at least you understand those numbers make sense to you and you can speak on it in that particular interview, that when you do get one or when you do get a call.
which will help you be confident as well, right?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, let's move on to the next the next topic of communication with recruiters, because I think this is very essential. A lot of times, what happens is, because we come from, like, the problem with a lot of the Asian side of the market is because we respect our elders so much, and a lot cultures have play a very big role when it comes to the job search as a whole as well, and how we work. So things like calling your boss sir, your manager sir, madam, that's very common. Now, when you're coming to a place like the UK, I don't think that's a common trait to have. Like, no, you can address people, you can address people by their names, and I'm sure you can relate to that as well. But it's not very common in every other country outside of the Western countries. So how can job seekers show that they're prepared, and how can they communicate this effectively, like their interest towards a role and so on?
So first and foremost, I would say um, an employer or recruiter are looking for somebody who's done their homework. And I can't stress this enough. You need to prepare, research the company role, um, and definitely have at least one question that you can ask to relate to the company, like maybe on a research project or a sister company that can show them that you've done your homework. Always show passion and enthusiasm. I've said before, like that you're willing to contribute, um, and yeah, just remember that you're not just looking for a job; you're looking for a vocation, somewhere where you're going to belong, contribute, and grow. I've walked into interviews overqualified, and I still wasn't chosen.
Mm,
Why? Uh, well, I guess it's not just about what's on your CV, it's about how you present yourself and connect with the
mm.
employer.
Right. So, and adding on to that, I think another key point is body language. So, when it comes to body language, how would you, how would you resonate, and how would you want to position yourself in terms of how you carry yourself for an interview setting?
So I would say that body language is possibly the most important thing. Um, our body language makes up for 90% of our communication.
Hmm.
And here I can give you, a few tips, but it's really something that um, we could get into, we could talk about this for an hour really. Um, so yeah, but so I would say, just a few tips, like small things make a big difference. Your posture, sitting straight, smiling, um, and it's really interesting as well that, if you ask someone, well, what's the first thing you notice when you meet someone for the first time? People probably say like your eyes or, someone's face, but it's actually research shows that it's your hands.
Mm.
So, the palms of your hands, if you can show the palms of your hands, like we wave and we shake hands, um, that shows honesty and openness. But if
Okay.
your hands are closed or your palms are down, it shows like nervousness and discomfort. So you're going to come across defensive. Something as simple as like a head tilt when
Mm.
you're listening, will show that you're interested and concentrating. And then eye contact is a big one as well. Um, and it's quite an intimate thing. So it's important, but then you have to kind of get a fine balance because you don't want to be making eye contact 100% of the time. I'd say more like 50. And really, even
Right.
how you close the door behind you matters. It all matters.
Okay. Well, yeah. So how would someone learn that? These are things that I think people would want to know, but how would you learn how to, because how you are in your home country versus how you are in the UK is completely different. So how would you learn these nuances?
So, yeah, like I said, I can give those little tips, um, and it probably, yeah, I'm sure it's different in every country, and learning it myself. I mean, I've done a lot of research on this. I'm constantly studying nonverbal communication, all forms of communication,
Mm-hmm.
um, and of course, it takes time. But yeah, I guess if you're interested um, in how to communicate in nonverbal communication, I mean, I'm always happy to help. If there are specific questions, I'm happy to answer those or speak to people one on one, whatever helps.
And where do we find you?
Where do you find me? Well, I'm on LinkedIn,
That's great.
Instagram, all of them. Yeah.
Well, search for Neidra Wright if you guys really do want to get in touch with her, or if you feel like no, or you could reach out to me, and we're no happy to connect you. And obviously, we are working together. So in cases where we'll provide her the platform in terms of where she takes up the services or to help you guys out, and so we can seamlessly help you in making sure things work out properly. So yeah, so do reach us out, and we'll help you out. And then the next question that I had was, I think we've gone from now body language. Now from body language, how you communicate in terms of speech. So what about speech, and how important is that, and how to be effective in speech? Like, because a lot of people say phonetics matter. A lot of people say how you pronounce matters, and enunciate matters. So how could, like, firstly, maybe you could differentiate between pronunciation, enunciation, and like what it means to be different in these sorts of ways, and then maybe go about how powerful speech is.
So, if I can just backtrack a little bit, I think it's important to mention that before you speak, even before you speak, um, before answering a question in an interview or engaging with someone, if you take a deep breath into your chest, um, you're going to feel more relaxed, and whoever you're engaging with, your interviewer, is going to feel more relaxed. And if we speak from our chest, not just from our throat, you're going to feel and sound more confident. I
Hmm.
don't know if you've noticed that some cultures do this naturally. If you've heard people speak Arabic,
Right.
Russian, or even Italian, they speak from their chest. And even if you try and speak from your chest, you'll notice that you sit up straighter. You'll drop your shoulders and you'll kind of sit up straighter.
Mm-hmm.
Which also, these qualities are linked to leadership and presence, which your employer is always going to be looking for. Um, there are lots of exercises you can practice at home, breathing from your diaphragm, recording yourself. Um, yeah, lots more tips there as well.
Well, there's definitely a lot more teaching that you do than music. I don't know if a lot of people know, but Neidra was my music teacher when I was back in school. So it's really nice to connect with someone, and to see how small the world is, and how things kind of change in such um, quick periods of time. I think in the big outset of things, I think 10 to 15 years is very small, but like it's still uh, like I never expected to be having you on on one of my podcasts. So it's very very heartwarming to see this happen. And yeah, thank you for being here. So
Thanks for
yeah,
having me.
let's move on to the next question. Um, how can job seekers shift their mindset to see the job search as an opportunity to contribute? Because a lot of times, we look at job search as kind of the thing that we want to do to just get away from that, escape, or it's for some people it could be an escape. For some people it's like I just have to do it. No, how can you kind of have a mental shift of going firstly going into a job that you like, that you want to find a job that you like, but before that, how do you have a mental shift to want to enjoy working?
So I think, especially in the context that we're speaking about, as international students, from what I understood from you, is that, and this could be anyone really as well, but
Hmm.
they're coming from a place of, their visa's going to run out, and they need to find a job
Yeah.
really quickly. Um, and I think coming from a place of desperation is
Mm.
never good. I know myself. I wouldn't be, I wouldn't employ somebody just because they were desperate. But so I would
Yeah.
encourage people to focus on value. Um, and I think if you shift your mindset to thinking about the impact that you're making in your role and not just the income, um, and then you're not just trying to get a job, you're also checking if the company and the culture of the company is right for you. So if you can shift your mindset from oh, I hope they like me, to do we suit each other, you will already come across
Yeah.
more confident and relaxed. And then if you ask
Mm.
thoughtful questions and assess if the role aligns with your own personal goals and values and strengths, this mindset is going to create a healthier dynamic, and be more like a conversation than a one-sided test, which interviews can often feel like. Um, it's really important to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, you can't expect anybody else to believe in you.
True. And a lot of times, yes, like you said, no, we are acting from a place of desperation. And so, no, I also want to add on to that point of, when you do the job search matters a lot. Like, because when I started my course, I got my offer letter from my university. I had 5, 6 different universities that offered me, and I had my top three. In my top three, in those cities, I started applying to jobs. I just wanted to get a feel for it. It wasn't that I was still back in India. I hadn't moved yet to the UK, but I changed my location on my LinkedIn just to be proactive and search for jobs and send out applications just to see if I was getting any response. Um, and that kind of opened my eyes because I had a lot of conversations that are already started way before my course has started. So the moment my course started, I had a part-time job waiting for me. So, and that part-time job wasn't at Starbucks or wasn't at a little or Aldi or FedEx. It was executive. I was running social media campaigns and I was studying business. So it kind of merged into what I was doing before, because I was in business development functions. I was doing a part of it, but now being able to be in my core strengths kind of helped me. So, and when I got another part-time job, that exact part-time job was the first one was the one that changed my full-time role after I finished my MBA. So it's really nice how how things could work, but people don't see it to like they don't see it until it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's too late, you act from a place of desperation, and you don't have options to weigh in your options of like, whether choose your salary brackets, and you don't have the leisure or like the ability to even choose which employer you work for, if things will work out with you. Because a lot of times we say, oh, I got rejected. All I'm getting is rejection emails. All I'm getting, but you only need that one yes. So you having that 99 rejection is probably a blessing in disguise, because that employer and you are not going to see eye to eye, so it's not going to work out for you in the long run anyways. So if you look at it like that, and you have that mindset shift, you then start to think, oh, okay, now let me look at ways and where I can actually put in my time and effort, and I can actually focus my efforts, and that kind of streamlines things. And a lot of times we take in that rejection to ourselves personally, and because we take it personally, it hurts us and beats us down, and we don't want to actually wake up the next morning and apply for jobs
Right.
because it feels boring. So I think I also in some of the videos that I've spoken or the conversations that I've had, I've always told people to look at it like you, if you were a salesperson, you're gonna hear from a million people how they don't want your product,
Mm-hmm.
but you always gonna search for that one yes every so frequently, every day or every week or every month. So you always are searching for that one person to be a paying customer.
Yeah.
Now that's how you're going to be looking at your job search. If you put yourself as a product, and if you view yourself as a product and you're selling yourself, then things start becoming a lot more clearer, and you're not focusing on, oh, this person rejected me and taking it personally, right? And then you're really focusing on, oh, okay, they rejected me. How can I ramp up my applications, the number of job applications I'm going to send? How can I categorize companies and structure my CV in such a way that I can work to apply for more business analyst roles and not data science roles, or no vice versa, or no whatever it is? Because people then start to look at like one generic resume or CV, and then they apply to every role possible out there, and that doesn't work because you're just spraying and praying, and you're spraying and praying to even roles that make no sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're a sales associate applying to a developer role. You're just applying to everything, so of
Yeah.
course you're going to get rejected.
Yeah. And that goes back to what I said about practice, right?
Right.
If you can look at it more like, doing that interview, I didn't get it, but it's practice. And now I'm not sure if, I want this or I want that. And it kind of, yeah, like you said, it kind of streamlines where you're going. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, you get the right thing. So,
Cool. So, how important is, I think we did touch a little bit on this point, but how important is phonetics and pronunciation in communicating, especially for the job market in 2025? Because right now, you know how all English speaking countries, like, if we look at the main ones, like US, Canada, the UK, Australia, they all have some sort of examination to kind of see if your English is to the level that they want it to be. But then they don't actually check your like on the job communication skills, right? It's just theory based or grammatical checks, and so a lot of people pass through those exams and all the aptitude examinations, and then they come to the country, but then face difficulties in understanding the lingo, being able to capture the vibe of how recruiters speak to you or how people speak to you, not able to understand what they're saying. So, how important is phonetics and pronunciation in communicating to recruiters or hiring managers?
um, so first of all, I would emphasize that clarity matters more than the accent. Um, in the UK, it's quite an international market.
Mm-hmm.
So recruiters and employers, well, people in general, are used to speaking and communicating with foreigners. So I think that once you are clear and respectful, everything else, um, people will be easy to, it'll be easy to forgive anything else really. But saying that, I think it's important to practice the industry terms, and you can use various tools to improve clarity if needed. There are lots of voice recording apps, where you can record yourself answering questions and play it back to check clarity. Um, yeah, there are lots of different language learning apps as well. But I think the goal isn't to sound British. It's to make sure that your message is easily understood and that you speak with confidence.
Cool. So, yeah, so I think one of the points that you said, like, you don't have to sound British. So, I think, you get into that rut where you want to start sounding, you want to start simulating and emulating people around you, and you want to try to copy them, but that might not work. It might be detrimental to you. Um, how you communicate a message and the vocabulary you use is more important, and that works even on the CV, because a lot of times what happens is you start and tend to put all these jargons and try to put all these words and fancy words onto your CV, and it kind of backfires because nobody understands what you're trying to say. But if you
Right,
kept it simple, at least they understand what you're trying to say and what you're trying to convey to them. So they're able
right,
to look at you for who you are, even if there are mistakes. Um, and no one's looking for a perfect resume or a perfect person, but at the same time they want to know that you gave it your best shot and you've done what you can do best. And also, I don't think anyone can ever be perfect, but what you could do is to ensure that there are small things like issues in alignments and like how you present yourself that can make you stand out, and then the other things of how you communicate can, if you're not so good at it, it can obviously take a back seat, but you can find ways to showcase yourself in other ways, whether it be your LinkedIn profile, whether it be a website maybe that you create to show your creativity skills or the projects that you worked on. So these are different ways to also communicate to recruiters and hiring managers. It doesn't necessarily have to always be speaking. It doesn't necessarily have to always be in your resume. There are so many ways that you can communicate a message across. So I always tell people, like, if you have anything, even if you don't have anything worth showing, like for developers, have a GitHub portfolio where you're able to showcase what projects that you worked on, even if it hasn't gone your way. Put it on there so recruiters understand that you have done what it takes to document your journey, and of course you're going to have a learning curve. And so some people maybe want to have a YouTube channel, or some people maybe want to have a nice LinkedIn profile or a Behance profile where they're able to narrate their journey and their story. And that's completely fine. And they should use that to express their individuality,
right.
because that's very important.
Yeah, yeah. I think embracing that uniqueness, any employer should admire that really.
Right, because you have that international advantage of coming from another culture
Hmm.
and adapting to this culture. That in itself is a big step. And on top of that, if you're able to adapt quickly and learn quickly, it's just all the more effortless to help, to get help from recruiters. Because I know, in my scenario where, because I grew up in Mozambique, studied Portuguese, came to the like did my undergrad in India and then worked there for a bit, and then came to the UK to do my master's. And when I went into my job, I think I started off, selling in sales, like sales in English, selling in English and doing everything in English. But then when an opportunity arose where I had to speak with someone in Portugal and Brazil, I could step up to that game and be
Yeah,
like, "Hey, I'm here. I can do it." Right.
yeah,
So that was the advantage that I had. It's not that that was what they recruited me for, but no, these are things that you pick up, and these are things that set you apart from someone else because you have that, you have different cultures embedded into you.
absolutely, absolutely.
Cool. So, yeah, I mean, next we're going to go into cultural awareness and communication styles in the UK. Just that was a really good segue into that. How can international students build rapport with UK recruiters, considering the cultural differences that we even spoke about?
So one thing that's really important is that you are relatable. So I would go as far as to say you need to go and stalk the recruiter.
Mm.
Check their social media. What are their interests? What you have in common. Obviously, don't turn up to their house, um, but just do your homework.
Yeah.
And then when you're people in the UK love small talk, whether it's the weather or what you did at the weekend.
Yeah.
But then you've actually got something to talk to them about, um, obviously in a polite and respectful way. Um, but yeah, talking about even the UK work culture, bringing these things up. Yeah, but just really being relatable is
Right.
it's going to make them happy.
Yeah, because I think I found that very difficult to understand when I initially started working because we'd come on a Monday morning and they'd be like, "What was the weather like?" I'm like, "Do we really want to talk about the weather?" Or and then from weather it would go to, "What did you do on the weekend?" I think to myself, does my boss really want to know what I did on my weekend? And if I said no, I was singing at my local church, or um, I went to play cricket because I play cricket with the team. Um, they go into trying to understand you a little bit more, and we're like, oh wow. What do you do? What do you do in cricket? Like, do you bowl or bat? And it's all these questions that keep coming. I'm like, how does this relate to my work?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but because we're not used to that.
Yeah,
We're so used to being in that fast paced environment of just go get attitude that we don't take the time to understand the people around us. And in the UK it's kind of different because you want to have that collaboration in teams and work with each other and try to understand each other, and things are a little bit more calm in that way.
yeah.
Whereas back home, or I'd say in certain countries it's very just get your job done and leave, no, or do the extra hours and keep working whenever you can.
Yeah.
And so that, it's not like there's no stop, there's no balance. So
Mm-hmm.
that is something that people look for when they are looking for jobs. But at the same time, they've got to step up their game in terms of trying to understand what is required in an environment of professionals sitting in a new company and a new organization. Yeah. So next, we want to move on to in terms of appropriate ways to greet and address professionals, recruiters, and senior colleagues. Because I think we did touch base upon this of calling someone sir, madam, not by their first name. It might feel uncomfortable. I still have a lot of people who I speak to right now, and they're students or they've just graduated. They would call me sir. I'd be like, no, just use my first name. But it doesn't come naturally to them, so they still have that resistance. So how do they break free from that?
So you've already touched on this, but in the UK, it's quite informal. They've got an informal like hierarchy. It's not the traditional, kind of sir, madam, Mr., Mrs. Um, they're so polite in the UK. I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's like you cannot say please and
Hmm.
thank you and all of this enough. Excuse me. If somebody bumps into you on the street, you like, even if it wasn't their, or if you bump into someone on the street and it wasn't their fault, they'll still say sorry. Like you
Yeah.
can't say it enough. So really, just understanding that, and yeah, saying good morning, hello, please, thank you. Um, and I think when you start off communication, if you're starting to speak to somebody over email and you're unsure, it's okay to say, to address them as Mr. or Mrs. But once someone signs, their email with their first name, then you need to address them with their first name.
Hmm.
I know people who are still called Mr. and Mrs. by foreigners, um, and they really dislike it. They don't like
Hmm.
it at all. So I think that's an important one.
Right. I mean, yeah, for our backstory, I used to call you Miss Neidra, so um, that's
But
changed.
we didn't live, in the UK. Yeah.
All right. So and so how would you how would you say, like, let's say I wanted to stop you mid sentence and I wanted to interject. How would I do that in a polite manner without disrespecting the other person?
Um, just very softly. Everything's about kind of being soft. So it's like, sorry, excuse me, and then just using their first name.
Right. Because I think um in certain work settings, what happens is we don't allow the other person to finish and we just budge in, and
Mm,
that could be disrespectful in an interview process, or even just conversing with recruiters and hiring managers just to make your point, because you're so eager to land that job, or so we don't allow the other person. So I think it's very crucial for when you're communicating also to be able to listen to the other person, and maybe take a pause when they're speaking to actually listen to them entirely. And even if you did disagree, you can always come in with your points at the right time after they've finished, instead of cutting through, because that sends out a signal that you're not willing to listen, or you're not willing to accommodate someone else's thought process behind like expressing their feelings, or expressing their thoughts.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Right. And in terms of handling interviews and follow-ups, what kind of questions should, if I were if I were, the job seeker, what kind of questions should I ask during an interview to make a good impression of myself?
Um, so I would say, again, doing your homework. Okay, so um, asking about the team culture, about growth opportunities, um, challenges within the role, and yeah, even asking about clarity on the next steps, all of those
Okay.
things. Yeah.
So, and in terms of some strategies to like stand out in a job interview, or when there, because there are so many candidates who are very similar in category, or in how they've worked, or how they've studied, whatever they've studied. Because if you look at most Indian students, they've either done an engineering degree, or something to do with IT or engineering side of things, and then they're coming to do their masters, and they're trying to shift from their engineering field to a more generalized field. So in those situations, how would you strategize in your job search, and like how would you stand out from everyone else?
Okay, so again, I would say it's really important to show that you're enthusiastic and passionate, show that you've done your homework, and like we mentioned before, highlight your uniqueness. So, coming from even myself as a job seeker, um, I've always kind of highlighted the fact that, my ability
Hmm.
to work and adapt across cultures and languages, and to really highlight my real world experience, because that's something that other people can't compete with. You don't have the same
Right.
experience. So rather than just having that CV created by ChatGPT that highlights all your skills, to actually get into it.
Hmm. And how could I follow up with like after conversations with the recruiter? Because a lot of times what happens is a recruiter speaks to us for the first initial call, and then they go their way, and we have no visibility of what's happening, or are we still on the list of people being considered? So how would I go up for a follow up, and how to do it in a professional and a more that shows initiative and like interest in that role, rather than just bombarding them with kind of a question where question to like ask them if they're doing the right job, like if they're doing their job right,
Yeah, yeah.
instead of making it look like that.
Uh-huh. So one of the things that I found in the UK is that they love saying thank you, right? But
Hmm.
even if you go to a wedding or a party, afterwards, people will send a card or even a message saying thank you for attending. It's very much part of the UK culture. So sending a thank you email to the recruiter, and taking the opportunity to mention any key takeaways that you got from the conversation, again with interest and enthusiasm, and you can
Mm.
ask about the next steps politely, and even if you're under a deadline, you could say, can I expect to hear back from you by this date, or will you let me know? Just kind of approaching it that
Right.
way.
Okay, and moving on, I think this is a very important topic to a lot of the students, because a lot of them are international students navigating through work, just the work visa, work authorizations, like it's because it is like, and then there are some sensitive topics as well, like when it comes to cultural differences. But how do you handle the visa status questions, or how do you as a candidate ask the recruiter if that's a possibility, and at the same time how would you handle questions when that's been thrown to you? How should you, or how would you handle those questions in terms of work authorizations?
Yeah. So I remember at the company, one of my companies in Mozambique, I had one employee in particular who was going through some difficulties, some difficult situations, but she was so honest, and transparent about what was happening, that I actually, that built up trust, and I ended up promoting her to manager pretty quick. But it's just to say that honesty and transparency about your situation is really important,
Hmm.
and showing that you understand um, the visa process,
Right.
being flexible, and once you highlight your skills and your value, your employer is not going to want to lose you,
Hmm.
and they'll move mountains for you. Showing that you're looking for solutions. There's always going to be problems, but just
Hmm.
to show that you're willing to, you'll find the solutions in the problem.
Right. And just adding to that, like, what cultural differences should someone be aware of, like, because when they're, and how should they tackle like sensitive topics, and like, being direct in workplaces, in terms of the cultural differences in itself.
So in the UK, they have quite a reserved culture.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that shocked me when I got here, actually, because I'm quite an open and an honest person. Um, so I've had to learn how to avoid oversharing.
Right.
Um, I'm probably still learning. But I guess take constructive, with when it comes to corrections.
Mm-hmm.
Take that constructive criticism. Take it as a positive, um, in a calm way, and just, if you need to address it, be direct but respectful and tactful. You can ask questions, once you're respecting personal space,
Mm-hmm.
and boundaries. Um, I think personal space is another big thing here in the UK. They seem to have a bigger kind of personal bubble than we would have in other parts of the world. So respecting that is important. And if you do need to address something that is sensitive, um, I would make sure it was on a one-to-one basis. So
Right.
let's say it's with your boss. Um, Go to them and say, could I arrange a meeting with you? I need to speak to you about something. And just to give them a heads up, you wouldn't bring it up in front of everybody else.
Mm. Okay, yeah, that's a very valid point. I think it's very common to just speak to your boss, in the open and so on. So I think that's definitely something to take care about. So this was one of the questions that had also come up, which was normally recruiters are very bubbly and very open, like in speaking to you and motivating the candidate. So what they generally do is they tend to give a really nice feedback, um, a very nice feedback on call,
Mm-hmm.
on the in the interview, and then once the interview is over, go back and kind of discuss and then draft an email saying you weren't right fit. So um, some people take it personal and it's like, then why did you interview me in the first place? So how do you navigate through that? Because it's difficult because in the like in the interview process itself, you kind of have a very nice conversation with the recruiter, and the recruiter says, "Oh yeah, so the next process is so and so. You're gonna meet with the hiring manager, and this is what's gonna happen, and X, Y, Z, and you have everything lined up." But then you get an email which is stating exactly the opposite. So, how would you navigate that? Like, no, can you ask them for feedback? Like, how do you go about it from there?
Um, so one of the things about communication in the UK is that they have, especially in social settings, not so much maybe in the workplace, but they have a very roundabout way of saying things. So let's say, for example, you invite somebody to do something with you, and they say, "Yeah, we could do," but what they actually want to say is, "No, I don't think so," um, because it's part of the culture that people don't say no directly,
Hmm.
which can be really confusing when you're coming from somewhere else. When yeah, there's just it's it seems impolite in the culture or something. So that can be very confusing. But with us in terms of communicating with recruiters, if they've done that to you, I would say just keep the tone friendly and remember um, that it was good practice, um, and that you're now, if you keep up kind of that relatability with the recruiter, another position will come up and they'll say,
Hmm.
okay, well, she's the right fit for this one. So, yeah, just to try and be patient.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. No, being patient through this process is difficult.
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, and we're coming to the last last four, but very important points. In terms of the nervousness, in terms of salary negotiation, which is probably no one of the most important things of why people want to work, because they've got bills to pay, they've taken a hefty loan, so that becomes a very sensitive topic as well. So what are some of the strategies of overcoming those nervousness during phone or video interviews with UK recruiters when you're having those difficult conversations about salary and just going through the hard questions?
So, first of all, I would say go back to those breathing techniques. And I know this seems really simple, but you actually have to do it. If you breathe in, and even if it's just for four, hold your breath and then let out, but for a longer time, let's say for 6 seconds.
Hmm.
If you concentrate on your exhale, um, this is what really slows down your heart rate. will help you to focus and not get nervous or stressed. You'll come across more confident. Um, and again, preparing is so important. Doing those mock interviews with whether it's with friends and family, and then you can actually focus on the conversation. Let me think. You asked about salary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when it comes to communicating with recruiters, I think accepting graciously, but also asking for details. Um, I would only negotiate salary once you've been offered the position.
Hmm.
Um, so you could go about it by saying something like, I really appreciate and I understand, but given my experience, could we discuss? And then, go on. Again, it's about being patient but proactive at the same time.
Right. Because I think a lot of times what happens is, there are questions regarding salaries thrown about even in the first or second call, and just to filter out candidates. So, how should someone tackle that? Like, um, should they mention a number, or should they not, or should they wait? Like, should I tell them to tell them that they're flexible and then wait until the offer has been made? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So if they bring it up within before they've actually offered you the position, I
Mm-hmm.
would tend to kind of go with the flow or avoid it. But yeah, not bring it up or not try and negotiate before you've actually been offered the position. You can say, like you said, like, we'll discuss it, or I'm flexible,
Mm.
but don't actually go into,
The
I'm not going to
numbers.
do that. Yeah.
Right. Sounds good. Okay. And yeah, and to end things kind of no end things off, well, like in terms of professionalism and etiquette, in UK workplaces, what are key expectations around professionalism and email etiquette, and even just behavior in the UK workplace in general?
Yeah. So one of the key things here that is different in, Africa, definitely, probably in lots of parts of Asia as well, is that punctuality is a sign of respect
Mm-hmm.
and reliability. So that's a very important one. Um, Not being too formal, but again, being polite, like over polite, being clear and concise, and then respecting the work life balance. In the UK, the culture is kind of, a 9 to 5 job, but then after that, it's kind of looked down on if you try and speak about work, or if you reach out to someone after hours, kind of, um, it's like you're getting into their personal space, because that's their home time. So they're quite efficient during the 9 to 5, but then after
Right.
that, you don't cross those boundaries. One thing that's very interesting is that, um, in the UK, they don't sit around to eat and socialize like we would do in other parts of the world.
Hmm.
Lunch times, they'll take their lunch to their desk. They'll have a cup of tea, but they'll continue working. But then there's a huge pub life kind of culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and especially, I guess, on a Thursday and Friday, people will go out. They'll invite you to go out for drinks after work, and
Yeah.
that's where you get to know your colleagues. And I think I would really encourage, everybody to kind of try and embrace that, and to go along, even if you're a different religion or you don't drink. Go and have a Coke, and
Right.
yeah, just socialize a little bit, because you will become more part of the team. It's quite an important part
Hmm.
of the culture to do those things.
Right. I think, yeah. I mean, I was one of those reluctant ones, but then no, I got around to it, and it kind of really helped because you have nice conversations. And people let their guards down. They're speaking to you more about what the future is about, like how you can help each other and so on, and you get to understand a lot more. Although not to the extent of what I've seen, because I was working in an insurance brokerage company at that point, and um, we would go to the pub. I think like 3 days a week at like 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Close business hours as no as soon as no we had like one client coming in or something, and then just go celebrate. And it was very common in the summer, but I felt like, okay, but my work hours, I'm not done with work yet. So but okay, let's say in that particular scenario, let's say you did have work and you did have dependencies of things you had to get done and the team was going. How would you navigate through that? How would you say no?
So you're saying if you had work to do and you had to stay at work
Yeah,
and everyone else
yeah.
was, yeah. Um, well, I guess I would compare it to, um, I would actually consider it part of the work,
Hmm.
because it's so important to build those relationships. Um, of course, if you've got a major deadline or whatever, it's different. But it's extremely important. It's like, in another culture, not turning up for a meal. You know,
Hmm.
it's really going to be looked down on. Yeah.
Okay, and lastly, just like filler words. Is it okay to use filler words in an interview,
What do
like
you mean by
ums and
filler words?
ahs and um,
Again, going back to clarity.
yeah.
Once you're coming across as clear and respectful, and you've prepared, I don't think it's not a major problem. People aren't even really going to notice, if what you're saying is interesting and you're enthusiastic.
Cool. Thank you. No, this was wonderful. It was really exciting to have you and your insights. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the time you've taken to as well, engage with our community members and offering to help them as well. So this is wonderful, and we see hopefully some of them come by and we're able to help more people, and no, look forward to working with you as well.
Look forward to it too. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
And no, guys, no, thank you for staying tuned, and thank you for joining in. No, if you do want to get in touch with Nidra, or if you want to get in touch with us and get some support, do reach out to me. No, my details are in the description below. And then no, if you want any of the free resources that's available, I'll put down my website as well, so you can go ahead and grab those. And if you want a free CV review, you can contact me on WhatsApp, and we'll go ahead and help you out as well. Thank you so much. And no, happy job hunting. Take care, guys. Bye. Great.